A Revell 1/72 scale A-6E Intruder model is one of the models from an old box kit that contains two kits. We have decided to build this model in a 4-color scheme that was the scheme for only one aircraft assigned to the USS Teddy Roosevelt and was flown early in Operation Desert Storm. This choice was made to show off our masking of a complex shape as well as some unusual colors for U.S. Navy jets. There are 6 sprues with parts along with one small sprue for the clear items supplied. Note that this is a very old kit and that the instructions are mediocre at best. After removing many parts from the sprues and sanding them smooth, I am now ready to start cementing the sub-assemblies together. A small part is glued to one of the fuselage halves at the bottom of that fuselage and what appears to be a tiny air intake scoop at the top of that same fuselage. The wing and belly tank halves are cemented together. As I have done in the past, I am using CA to glue the majority of the parts together in this build as it gives a very strong bond. Using a Vega 2000 airbrush equipped with a 0.3mm or medium tip, I am spraying TCP 1250 interior green in the inside of the fuselage halves and the seats. Since many U.S. aircraft use this color for the cockpit interior, I prepared a stock 1-ounce bottle with a Badger adapter as I build a lot of aircraft. All airbrush spraying that will be done in this build is at 28 to 30 psi. TCP 1213 Federal Standard 34079 Forest Green is sprayed on the bombs. There are 4 racks of 3 bombs each that is included in the kit. I noted the molding is not done correctly as the attachment slits on some of the bombs are not well defined, and these are going to be a problem when it comes time to cement these on the skids. There are no instructions supplied on what color to paint the struts and hubs on this model, so I decided on using TCP 1388 aircraft aluminum for them. I spray painted these parts as previously outlined. TCP 433 matte black is being painted on the instrument panel. Test fit the fuselage halves. I noted a very poor fit where that extra piece was glued into the fuselage bottom, and that a lot of putty will have to be used to fill in the gaps. Use CA for gluing the fuselage halves together, and I use rubber bands to hold them in place. Using Tamiya putty, I apply that to the gaps at the bottom of the fuselage. You can use any tool that is convenient for you. I use a piece of a baseball card that has no value for this operation, as I can discard it after use and it is stiff enough to smooth out the putty. After allowing the putty to cure for an hour or two, sand the repair as smooth as you can. I started with a 200 grit sanding sponge, followed by an 800 grit sanding sponge to sand the putty. You can decrease grit sizes as you like to achieve whatever smoothness you desire, but I stopped here because I like the results obtained. The instructions are very poor at this point, as it is not clear where the seats are to be positioned into the cockpit, and it was not until much later in the build that I noted they were too high to allow the canopy to sit correctly, and I had to cut and sand the seat backs. Cement the control panel into the front of the cockpit area. I used plastic weld to secure it in place. Since the vast majority of my aircraft builds are static models, I chose to cement the speed brakes in a closed configuration onto each side of the fuselage. I used plastic weld for these parts. Two 1/72nd scale pilots are hand painted in this section with various flat brushable paints that we manufacture. The tunic and the trousers are being painted a flat medium green, as that seems the most appropriate color for pilots of that era. Cleanup of the paintbrushes used is easily accomplished with acetone. The helmets are painted TCP 818 flat light tan. Note, no information on what colors should be used on the pilots were given in the instructions, so I did some research on what could be the colors for uniforms of pilots during Desert Storm. TCP 804 flat grimy black is painted on the very tiny boots. Last color to hand paint on these small figures is TCP 840 flesh. The two figures will be installed into the cockpit much later in this build. If you have any questions about techniques explored in this video or general questions about this build, please post your questions in the comments section below.